Welcome to the second chapter of the book of 2 Samuel. The past chapter 1, David finds out about the death of Saul, King Saul, and Jonathan, his best friend. So now Israel is without a king, but David has been anointed by the people of Judah as king, but not up in the northern part of Israel yet. And this is where we begin this chapter, and it says, "And it came to pass after these things, the deaths, and David asked by the Lord, saying, Shall I ascend into one of the cities of Judah?" That's interesting. He is asking a basic question of where he should move to. And I think in many cases, we should take David's example and also ask God whenever we are in a position to have to move, where should we move to? I had it in my heart when I was living in Southern California to move to Victoria, British Columbia, in Canada. Had a house up there. I wanted to be a missionary, and I packed up everything and left my mother, who was elderly, and went across the border, and the immigration asked how long I wanted to be there, and I said, well, however long the Lord wants me to be here. And they said, well, by saying that, you've just violated Canadian immigration laws by showing that you want to stay longer than the allowed time. So they had the purser of the ferry boat come in, put his revolver on the desk, signed me over to him, and he said, well, drive back on the ferry, you get a free ride back. So I didn't ask of the Lord. It was something I wanted to do, and it's very common. We want to do. A lot of times we don't ask of the Lord, but David did. And the Lord said to him, ascend. Ascend. And David said, where should I ascend? He said unto him, well, unto Hebron. And David ascended there, and both of his wives, Ahinoam the Jezreelitess, and Abigail the wife of Nabal the Carmelite. And we have a map here of, here's Hebron down here. Another map up here is a mount, it's behind my camera, Mount Gilboa, right around here. And this is where Jonathan and Saul were killed. And David was down the southern part here. They believe Ziklag was down in this area somewhere, but they're not sure. And this is where he was marauding. And then when we'll go back now here. So now Hebron is down here. So this is where he's to move from Ziklag, which nobody knows for sure where it is, with his wives. And the men were with him, each one in his house or household, and they dwelt among the cities of Hebron in Greek. And the men of Judea come and anoint David there to reign over the house of Judah, as I mentioned. And they reported to David, saying, well, the men of Jabesh of the Gileadites entombed Saul. Now, the Mount Gilead is up, there it is right here. So Jabesh Gilead, I believe, is right around here where this tree is. So they went across and got the body of Saul, and they entombed him. And David sent messengers to the leaders of Jabesh of the Gileadites, and said to them, being blessed are you to the Lord, that you performed this mercy for your master, for Saul, and you entombed him, the king. And now, may the Lord perform, this 4160, P-E-Se, P-A-O is the verb, means to do, and it depends on the context. It has many meanings, depending, like I said. You could say do mercy. Perform mercy sounds better in English. With mercy and truth, with you in truth, sort of like righteousness, the right thing to do, the true thing to do. And indeed, I will do with you this good that you did in this matter. I'll repay you for it. And now strengthen your hands and become as mighty sons, Dinatus, dynamite, dynamic. For Saul, your master has died, and indeed, the house of Judah has anointed me over them for king. Now, Jabesh is further north, part of Israel. They hadn't agreed with David being king yet. And Abner, son of Ner, commander-in-chief of Saul. And you remember him, he was the one that was by Saul when they were sleeping, and David took a spear and canteen, and he afterwards called out Abner and said he wasn't doing a very good job of watching over his lord and master. So this Abner was the commander-in-chief, and he took Ishbosheth, son of Saul, and brought him from out of camp into Mahanaim. Now, I don't think the map has Mahanaim on it. I don't see it. And he gave him to reign over Gilead, which is that Mount Gilead I was showing you on the other side of the river, Jordan, and over the Asherites, tribe of Asher, and over Jezreel, and over Ephraim, and over Benjamin, and over all of Israel. And this is Judah, and Israel is up here all in this place. And I'm not sure. This Mount Ephraim here is where it was. So the northern country is now being ruled by Ishbosheth, Saul's son. Ishbosheth, son of Saul, was 40 years old when he reigned over Israel. And he reigned 2 years, except for the house of Judah, which were following after David. And came to pass, or became the number of the days of which David reigned in Hebron, arithmos. We have arithmetic comes from that. Over the house of Judah 7 years and 6 months. And Abner, son of Ner, came forth, and the servants of Ishbosheth, son of Saul, from out of Mahanaim unto Gibeon. And Gibeon is over right north of Jerusalem, right over in here, I believe. And Joab, son of Zeruiah, who was the commander-in-chief of David's forces, and the servants of David came forth from out of Hebron and met them at the fountain of Gibeon. And these sat here on this side, and these others at the fountain here on that side. And Abner said to Joab, raise up indeed the servant lads, and let them play before us. And Joab said, well, let them arise. And they arose up and went by in number, 12 of the servants of Benjamin, of Ishbosheth, son of Saul, and 12 of the servants of David. So now they're getting up to do whatever they do, fight, wrestle, I don't know. And they each held by their hand the head of his neighbor, sounds like a wrestling, and his knife was thrust into the side of his neighbor. And they fell down together, and they called that place Portion of the Plotters, which is in Gibeon. And that was the men of Joab, of David, killed the men of Abner, of the Israelites. So it was called Portion of the Plotters, which is in Gibeon. And the battle was hard so as to an exceeding degree in that day. And Abner and the men of Israel failed before the servants of David, so there's probably more than just those 12. And there were 3 sons of Zeruiah, Joab, who was the commander-in-chief of David's forces, Abishai and Asahel, the brothers. And Asahel was light of his feet, he was fast, excuse me, as one doe of the ones in the field. Agriculture comes from that. And Asahel pursued after Abner and did not turn aside to go to the right nor to the left after Abner. Abner was fleeing back up north. And Abner looked to his rear and said, "Are you Asahel himself?" And he said, "I am." And Abner said to him, "Turn aside then to the right or to the left, and constrain to yourself one of the servants' lads, and take to yourself his full armor. Let's fight." And Asahel did not want to turn aside from being behind him. And Abner yet added, saying to Asahel, "Well, leave from me, that I should not strike you unto the ground. For how shall I lift my face to Joab your brother?" And he was not willing to leave. Asahel wasn't. And Abner struck him with the rear of the spear, shoved it backwards into his flank. Flank, I believe, is the side. And the spear went completely through from out of behind him. And he falls there and dies underneath him. Underneath not Abner, the other, Asahel. No, Abner. Asahel died. And it came to pass, everyone coming unto that place, topography from there, of map making, when they came to the place where Asahel fell there and died, they even stood still. And Joab and Abishai, the two brothers, pursued after Abner. And the Helium comes from that, sun went down. And they entered unto the hill of Ammah, according to the face of Giah, the wilderness of Gibeon. Exactly where that's at, I don't know. And the sons of Benjamin gathered together, following after Abner, and came to meet as one, and stood upon the head of one hill. So now we have more men joining David from Benjamin, and they're after Abner. And Abner called Joab, and he said, "Shall the broadsword devour in victory? Are we all going to die by the broadsword, and one of us will be victorious? Or do you not know that it will be bitter at the last? And for how long shall you in no way speak to the people to return from following after their brothers, the ones from Israel? When are you going to stop this?" And Joab said, "As the Lord lives, that if you had not spoken that, then from the morning the people even ascended, each after his brother." We would have done this, but you mentioned that. So Joab trumped the trumpet, and all the people left, and did not pursue any longer after Israel and Abner, and proceeded not any longer to wage war. And Abner and his men went forth at the descent of the sun, it would be night, and went all that night. And they passed over the Jordan, and went the entire night extent, and came unto camp. So now they're down here at Hebron, cutting across somewhere here, probably the Jordan. And he gathered together all the people, and they numbered the servants of David, having fallen, 19 men, and Asahel. And then the servants of David. Now Asahel, that was Joab's brother, the commander-in-chief of David. And the servants of David struck the sons of Benjamin and the men of Abner, 360 men. And they lifted up Asahel and entombed him in the burying place of his father in Bethlehem. That's where Jesus, of course, was born. And Joab and his men went the entire night, and light shined through to them in Hebron. So now the men of Joab following him, they're up there somewhere, and then they went spend the night and they go back to Hebron. Now we have two kings of Israel, Ishbosheth and David. And we'll find out more about that when we go into chapter 3. And again, I hope you'll join us. Till then, God bless.